Anyway, so now we're going to make our keg. We can get rid of that because Celine's already in there. So let's just seed again. Invalid single table inheritance type. PBR is not a subclass of keg. Interesting. It seems like type is probably a reserve word. Good call.
Brand, perhaps.
Beer type. Brand? Do you want to do brand?
Oh, I don't care.
Flavor? I'm going to go with brand. So once again, I apologize for that. Once again, we have to drop the damn thing. But, yeah.
That's the thing that'll happen.
Let's add Celine back in then. Alright. Super. So now, let's see, we have our insert into right there with our PBR. Okay, so now what? Are these related in any way? Not yet. So let's do that. Good question. Good question. What do we need to do to relate these two things? What would you, actually better question, what would you do if you were doing this by hand?
Or if you already use it.
Yeah.
Find the keg ID, the user ID, and put it in your PSD.
And then make a beer with those IDs, right?
Make those core keys there.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, if we wanted to do it literally, like with a SQL command or something like that, just do like, or let's, in Ruby even, like beer.new, keg ID, right now would be 1, user ID 1. Actually, user ID would be, no, still 1. So, okay, we would do that. And that's explicit, and that would still work. But Active Record makes it a hell of a lot easier, so you don't have to do that. So let's find Celine. A cool thing is there's a class method on user called first. What does that do? Hey, look, it's Celine. So let's set Celine to a variable.
So how did it know to go to users.first?
Because user in Active Record, it's just a class method on user. So that method is set to search the user table for the first entry and then return that object. Does that make sense? There are many, many, many class methods in Active Record, and you'll be using class methods much more than instance methods. Because class methods think of it as calling methods on your table, because it's just returning all of those things, all of, like those things that you want from your table. Those will be your class methods.
Did you say there was a list of places that we could see all that stuff? Like you said, there was great.
It's
Or like on the interweb.
you can just do .methods. So these are all of the class methods that you have on user. And so many of these are generated every time you make a new class in Active Record. There's a lot, and reading through each one once is good. Reading through them more than once is silly. That's why things like Google exist, because everyone else has had probably the same problem as you, and a Google search will do it. But it is valuable to look through some of these because you'll find a lot of things that are insanely helpful. One of which I'll show you in a little bit, which will save you so much time in the future. Okay, so now we see all of our class methods on user, and it's intimidating. But we already have Celine, right? We have her in a variable. Let's get our keg too. What was it, PBR? And we can just do .first again because it's the first thing in our table. So let's say that Celine goes and grabs a beer from the keg. And we had already talked about creating the beer literally, but let's just make it an Active Record. Let's have Active Record do it for us. That's why Active Record is here. So what How do I find the kegs that Celine has associated with her?
Kegs. Okay.
Celine.kegs. And it's empty. Because Celine hasn't started drinking yet because it's 2 o'clock. So, but Celine has decided to hit it hard today. Let's look at this though. What this? This just looks like an array, right? But so it's an active record association's collection proxy object, which is pretty much an array. What methods on array do you know that you can put an object in something else? Well, you can put an object in an array. Shovel, push. So what can I do here to put that keg, to associate that keg and Celine? Well, okay, push. What would I push? I'm sorry to keep asking questions, but I'm gonna keep doing it. PBR what? Y.ID. Okay, that makes sense. However, since we set it to a variable already, we want to shovel that whole object. Because active record is going to return the objects in that association, not just their ID. So when we do this, someone was raising their hand.
Oh, do we need to set it to a variable, or could we have just done keg.first?
You could just do keg.first.
Cool.
There are other ways to attach it with the ID. Perhaps predictably. Yeah.
So this is one way to do it. There's a dozen ways to do everything in active record.
Yep.
But this way, I feel like is probably one of the more comfortable ways of doing it because it's just array methods. So we do that. And what did it do?
So now the kegs of the collection.
What is this saying? I'm hearing a lot of wows, so I think you guys get it. Active Record automatically generated that beer for us. It automatically created that join. So, honestly, you don't even need to interact with beers at all with that join table right now. Because all I want to know is who's drinking from my kegs and how many times. And actually, well, that would be an instance where we'd check how many times. But when you go from a many to many, and you take the two endpoints and you shovel one into the other, it creates that join automatically. So it created, here we go, let's look at it. Keg ID 1, pretty, and then where's user ID? User ID 1.
So could you have shoveled Celine into the keg?
Let's try it. That was awesome. What would I need? What would I need to do that? What would I need? Dot users, exactly. And what should that return right now?
Empty.
Right now it will return
Empty collection proxy.
No, it should be so.
Probably associated.
They're already associated through that join table. So Active Record has already created that association because we have that join table, and those IDs are there. There's no specific, Celine doesn't own that keg. That keg doesn't own Celine. They're just associated. So that join table works both ways. Does that make sense? Everyone kind of okay with that? Great.
Mike, is there any way to tell somebody if they own the cake?
There is, and we can.
No, I'm good.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that if I was planning on getting to that. So.
Right now you're shoveling things into each other.
Mhm.
Right now, or if you see something and you have like 2 tables full of data and you wanna associate them without shoveling each and every single, field.
Mhm.
How would we automate that whole thing?
Okay. So we're in our seed file, and we have a bunch of tables.
And a bunch of users and a bunch of kegs.
Mhm.
You just wanna associate them without shoveling each other.
How do you want to associate them though? Because if you just want to kind of arbitrarily associate them,
Randomly.
you would have to kind of do some sort of loop and just do it, pick a random user, push it into a random keg, that kind of thing.
We've done a lot of each do. But we did a lot of each do in our seed files during week 1 of phase 2, if I remember correctly.
So there's no really easy way to come to two disassociated tables with a ton of data in it and have those associations made. The assumption is that as you're making the data, you'll have the associations in mind.
Right.
So setting up those associations as they're created is probably the easiest thing to do. That was a good question though. So yeah, you're gonna want to do some loops and just have like user.find and then a random number, and then keg.find a random number and push them into each other.
Basically, a loop would shovel stuff.
Yep.
into each other.
Yeah. In the end, it would just be or a more automated version of shoveling, truthfully. Or you could make the beers literally. You could do keg ID, user ID, and have them be random numbers.
Oh.
That would work as associations.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So let's do validations. There we go. I was expecting a cheer.
Yeah.
User. So really, the only one we're kind of gonna have validations on is user, I suppose. Well, and a keg because it needs a beer type. So what do you guys know about validations?
Unique presence of
Okay.
age has to be greater than.
Okay.
certain-
Okay. So
You won't create the object unless it passes your validations.
exactly. All right. So what do we have on user right now? We have just a name. So let's make sure that we always have a user. Before a user gets inserted into our table, it has a name. That's it.
So, should we write it that way opposed to validates name presence? Comma presence.
True.
This is just kind of a shortcut way of doing that.
Okay.
Validates presence of. It's also kind of a more semantic way of doing it, which a lot of Active Record is supposed to be more semantic and easier for like more human readable. Because a lot of the point of Active Record as well is so someone else can come and look at your code and know what the hell's going on. I mean, look, like has many beers. It's a sentence. User has many beers. Like it's all supposed to be like sentences. That's what Ruby is. It's so you can look at it and read it and then know where to go from there. So when you do validates presence of name, it's just very clear, very explicit.
Is there a library that has like validate syntax?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Active Record docs.
Yep.
The Active Record docs, which are some of the best documentation seriously ever,
Yeah,
has everything.
it's awesome. If you just do a Google search for active record validations, it'll take you straight to the right page.
Yeah, and get used to that. Make it your homepage because you're going to be using it a lot.
It's interesting because on that page it does do like validates name presence true.
Oh, really?
Rather than like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. You can do it either way. They both do pretty much the exact same thing.
Validations
I mean,
are
this
the-
obviously reads better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who said something?
The validations are not retroactive, correct? Or are they?
They are not. So right. So we just put this validation here. Do we need to do anything else? No? Yes? No, we don't. Because validations are at the model level. They interact with your Ruby temporarily stored data. It has nothing to do with your tables, really. Because all of that is run before anything gets inserted. So, let's close out of Array console and open it back up. And let's make Tyler. So if we do user.create here, with nothing passed in, what's going to happen?
There. Should be-
Okay. So, what is this saying?
Created it. Realized
So
there
just
was a
if
thing
we
and
call-
it rolled back to its original migrate.
Yeah, so rollback, yeah, the default is no. If you don't pass anything in, it's going to give you no. But rollback means it went to insert it into your table, but then your validations were like, that's not right, so no. And then that rolls back your database call. It's a transaction, and then it rolled it back and prevented it from happening. So now we have this free floating object. How do I access it? How do I access it to make it pass our validation? Anyone? Tyler. Because that object was made, it was created, it's still in our IRB, it just wasn't saved. So what we essentially just did was a user.new, and it just created us an object.
What
They
happens?
haven't saved it yet.
It hasn't saved it yet. It is not. This data has not been persisted yet.
Mikey, what happens if you create it with a bang and still no information?
That's a good question. Should we try it
Create
again?
exclamation point?
Yeah. Let's try it again.
Do it.
Well, I'll make a me. Oh, I know what it does, but let's not ruin it.
I like it one.
What is it? User. Just like that,
Yeah,
right?
just like that. Oh, wait, no, you gotta have the parentheses still.
Oh no, it worked.
Yay!
Yeah. Okay. So when you put a bang, it breaks.
It
Uh,
breaks much more loudly than
yes.
it does otherwise.
It breaks in the loudest way possible. So when you have validations, probably going to want to not use bang because that'll break your entire app. So it's I forget what using a bang is called, but without using a bang, it's like a lazy create. So it'll still make that object, it just won't save it, and it won't be loud about it. So if
So
you
why would you ever use bang?
you would use bang for testing and development, right?
Yeah.
When you want to know exactly what's going
Like-
wrong.
Basically, any situation in which you need to know if it didn't work immediately.
So most of the time, you probably won't be using bang, but that was really awesome. Thank you. That's a good thing to know. So we have Tyler. Do we have Mikey? No. So that whole thing was destroyed. Yeah?
Sorry.
We good on that? It's interesting.
We're fucking around with user.create bang.
Oh, you know what? I wonder. Now's probably not the time, but I wonder if your variable just had nil in it rather than an object made of nil because of the
Yeah,
parens.
without parens. That's probably what it was.
That doesn't pass your validations. Then you still have the object, but it just hasn't been saved.
All right. So that figured out. Good. We all okay on the bang? All right. So we still have Tyler. Tyler wasn't saved, and we can infer why, but we can also find out exactly why. So if we do Tyler.errors, we'll get back this active record error model object back. And it'll give you name, can't be blank, and tell you exactly why. But, even better, you can do errors.fullMessages. And it'll give you, in, again, a more human-readable format, hey, the name can't be blank. So now, we can make Tyler have a name so we can save him, right? How would we do that?
Tyler.name and just set a new object.
This guy's a code.
And this is an important thing to know. Active Record gives you attr accessors on everything, right? It's cool. It's handy. So you can just do Tyler.name equals Tyler.
How
And
does
then-
it work with encapsulation?
What do you mean?
Like, do we have to, in order to access those accessors, do we have to be in console? Or could we access them outside the console, making our code readable by everybody?
You could make them. I mean, they're accessible everywhere. They're just attr accessors. But in your code, when you're like using Sinatra or something, you can use like Tyler.name and change it. That won't change your database. It'll change your like temporary variable. So in all likelihood, that'll be gone unless you do something with it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it becomes less important to have attr accessors on everything because it's not necessarily interacting with the important like persisted data on your backend.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. What would we do now that we've changed Tyler's name? What's the logical next step? Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And now we have a new user, and his name is Tyler. Cool. I missed it. I missed the quip.
He said I was a real boy.
Oh yeah. Without a birthday. So let's see. Let's should we associate that keg and Tyler now? Okay. How would we do that? Sorry. Anyone? Say yeah, the same way exactly, but how? What is that way? Okay. So do we don't have our PBR variable anymore, right? Okay, so we have to go. We can start with keg or user. It doesn't matter. So let's just do keg. And we want. There's only one. So we can just do first.
Could we just do user.second, shovel and keg dot first?
Yeah,
Let's try it.
We did that last time.
Well, I know, but let's try it.
Okay.
That.
But we don't have
So why didn't that work?
I mean, user.second.kegs.
Exactly. So that didn't work because you're trying to shovel a keg. You're basically throwing a keg at Tyler's face. And when Tyler wasn't ready for it. Let's go with that. So user.second, that'll grab that second object, but you need to specify where you want that object to go. And that'll do it. Right? So you want that's an important thing. Chaining is going to be pretty big. So you want to access that user's kegs and then say put this one in it too. But Celine's right. We did that already. Let's do it the other way around. So we want the keg. We only have one. First, right? Now what? Dot users, and then shovel Tyler.
Woohoo!
Hooray! It works. So now, what would happen if I typed? Actually, here, better question. How do I get all of my entries on one of my tables? On any table, pick a table. How do I get all the entries? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. It'll give you all of them. So I think you're getting the feeling now that so much of Active Record is just learning what methods you have, and then using them. Because I know the first week that I was doing Active Record, I was still trying to work in a way to still use SQL commands. But all of those SQL commands, exactly, nailed it. Thank you, Tyler. Look at that. It's right there. That's exactly the command that you would be using otherwise. Active Record has just so many commands. There's also like user.first.second and like user.third, user.fourth, I think it goes up to fifth. For no reason. It just does. So there are a lot of methods that you need and a lot that you don't, but there are tons of them. So become acquainted with those and play around and see. Like semantically, you can guess. Like, oh, I want all the users. Let's try .all, and that'll give you all of them. A lot of the methods are like that. So if you just play around with it, you're not going to hurt your computer. Just screw around and try just a bunch of random methods, and you'll end up finding ones that are super useful.
I actually have a real question.
You do.
Yeah, the find by method, you can add like the naming conventions on the find by method, can't you?
Like find by.
Find by birthday.
Yep. Yeah. Those methods are generated for you, right? For every entry on your table, or for not entry, for every column.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, which is super helpful and really awesome. And incredibly powerful. What's up?
Would we be able to do select users, start users?
I think you can. Not in Rake Console. You can't. You can't run SQL commands in Rake Console.
Okay.
There's an Active Record method that lets you run those commands.
Yeah. And in fact, one fun thing I learned from watching Jesse Farmer does an Active Record talk that's somewhere on YouTube is that you can run to_SQL on any active record query, and it gives you the SQL command that it would run.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's do that. That
Pretty
sounds really
sweet.
awesome. So like to SQL?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. Let's
So now, like, if
someone pick a command.
Find by birthday.
Birthdays.
We'll just do find by name. Because got rid of birthday because fuck dates on tables.
You need an argument.
Uh-oh.
I do need an argument. Good call. Who said that? You're a genius.
Thank you.
Ah.
No.
See, now you're called. But no, that makes sense. Because now we found a user and we're calling that on that user object.
Mhm.
Because the result, 2D. The result of that call
Yeah, I called
was what
the-
ToSQL was being called on. So how do we do it on that?
I'm not sure. I know in the video, which I would even like to go take another look at, he got super complicated. You can like order by and like stack wares and then reware at the end. And
That's nuts.
yeah, I mean, quite frankly, after DBC, databases are just gonna get more and more complicated, right?
Yeah.
So
Did you guys meet Jones, Matt Jones? He showed us his production project, and each there were like 30 models, and one table had I think 20 validations on it, 14 of which were custom. So like, yeah, that's where it goes from here. So,
Yeah, sure enough.
so all right.